What's up everybody, this is Ven, and I welcome you to the MOC Spotlight, where we take apart what you build. For today's episode, we'll be going over Hunter Bolaka, created and posted on Reddit by Albert R. Broccoli. Now before we grab the bull by the horns, let me remind you about my method of reviewing, which involves a point system that is based on 3 fundamental attributes: the overall appearance of the MOC, the build of the MOC itself, and the concept and ideas behind the MOC's creation. Each quality will mount up to 5 points, leading up to a final score that will be determined at the end of the episode. And please remember that this is all based on my opinion. So let's get this started. At first glance, it appears that we have some kind of robot overlord with demonic horns and such. And this is a pretty cool looking figure. I mean, he's got this nice consistent color scheme. I think the red really helps in this case, because otherwise the MOC would probably look a little bland, seeing as it's basically nothing but silver and black. But the red really grabs your eye and says, you know, this is worthy of your eye to behold. The MOC's also got some pretty decent proportions, nothing that looks too awkward. And now there's some pretty cool features on this MOC that actually stick out to me quite a bit, such as these dreadlocks that the robot has on the back of its head. I think this is a pretty cool design and makes the MOC a bit more characterized. The weapons also have some pretty neat designs themselves. I really like the look of this lightsaber-ish weapon. I don't know, but it goes pretty well with the rest of the MOC. And I really like this gun. Like, this is a really nice design for whatever kind of blaster weapon this is. I don't know, it looks pretty good. And then finally, I really like these legs. I just love how these shield pieces on either side of each leg just kind of wraps around in this natural formation. And it goes really well with this overall armored style that the MOC has. I also really appreciate how the aesthetic of all the different parts is kept consistent. Like, all the silver parts are a lot more detailed than, say, the black parts, which are a lot more smooth and not so detailed. I'm not really a big fan of this choice for the bicep armor, or, you know, just the whole upper arm, how it utilizes this torso piece as armor. I never really liked this piece on anything besides a torso to begin with. Like, it pained me in the butt to see it on Tahu 2015's lower legs. It made it look like he had bell-bottom jeans, and I just hated it, and I still do. Here, it obviously doesn't look as bad, but it's not something I would have done personally. Another thing that I don't think really looks too good is kind of a small thing, but it's these Technic pieces on the forearms. I understand that these are probably here to add more coverage to the arms so that this portion isn't all too exposed, but it just doesn't look too good. And it looks like it kind of restricts, like, wrist articulation too, but I'll get more on that later. Aside from those things, everything else about this MOC looks pretty good to me. But I think the only thing that actually really impresses me, just out of how creative the design is the head. I think this is a really cool design. And not to say that the rest of the MOC isn't creative, but I would have liked to have seen this amount of creativity translated into the rest of the MOC, especially the upper arms. Now, as far as the build goes, everything looks pretty solid, you know? It's kind of a basic build that follows typical methods of connections. You know, snap a shell to a bone, snap a limb to a socket, etc. And there are very few custom portions, and, you know, the majority of it is all just aesthetic, really. Like adding these shield pieces to the legs. You know, nothing all too crazy that was put into the actual structure of the MOC, but more so on the actual appearance. For instance, these dreadlocks don't add anything to the MOC's integrity, but they do make it look cool. And, you know, there's a lot of things like that on this MOC. That said, it's pretty okay build, nothing all too crazy, gets the job done, has some fairly basic articulation. I would, however, think otherwise for the head because of the dreadlocks. Like, it seems as though these would probably hinder articulation in the neck. And then, of course, there's that problem with the wrists that I mentioned earlier. Besides from those things, everything looks pretty solid. Not much else to complain about, but not much else to really bring up either. And then one final note, there's a pretty creative usage of parts here that's worth mentioning, but there's only like a good bit of it. Like, I wish there was more of it throughout the entire MOC. But anyway, moving on to the concept. For what seems to be a more sci-fi robotic-inspired predator, I think there are some pretty neat ideas that are thrown into this MOC. It gives me the impression that it's some kind of hunter, maybe like a bounty hunter, especially since the description for this MOC described it as a notorious intergalactic adventurer that only works out of self-interest. And with these weapons and this intimidating appearance, what other job would be fitting for this kind of personality than perhaps a bounty hunter, like from Star Wars or something, like Boba Fett was a robot, a demon robot. Anyway, you gotta say, that kind of character I think is communicated pretty well. He looks menacing, he looks very threatening, he's got these big old weapons that look like they can slice or dice you. He's got that big red glowing eye that kind of has a mind of its own and tells you that it just wants to like rip your throat out or something. He's got them dreadlocks. This is a pretty good design for something like that. But at the end of the day, I could probably say I could see potential for a little bit more. Like, I don't know, maybe suit him up with more equipment. Make him look like he's more than just scary looking armor and a gun and a sword. You know, I don't know. Just that this MOC seems a little bit empty. It still looks good, but again, could use maybe a little bit more to it. So with that said, let's move on to the final scores and get this all wrapped up. So in terms of appearance, this MOC receives a 4 out of 5. I do like the design of this MOC. I think it's got a fairly solid appearance overall, but it could use a little bit more creativity in some aspects, and I'm not a fan of these arms. Like, I definitely think this could have been done differently. In terms of the build, this MOC receives a 3 out of 5. It's a pretty okay build. It does its job, it has articulation, though it may be a little bit hindered. And you know, it would have been nice to see a more creative usage of these parts that the builder had. For instance, I really like the head, which not only looks good, but it was also built really well. It was done creatively in both these aspects, and I would have liked to see this amount of creativity thrown into the MOC's appearance and its build. But all I can say about the build right now is that it looks okay. And then as far as the concept goes, I'll give this MOC a 3.5 out of 5. Because it's a pretty okay looking MOC for what it's supposed to be. I think it communicates the builder's ideas pretty well. I just think that there could have been more added to it, because like I said before, as it stands right now, it feels a little bit empty. But I can still definitely see the character that the builder came up with. So we add this all up, we get a final score of 10.5 out of 15. Definitely not a bad job for a MOC. I personally like it. I think it has a good bit of charm to it. But in the end, I think my main conclusion would just have to be creativity, because I could easily see this MOC looking a lot better just by kind of fiddling around with some small aspects. And you know, maybe taking some more unorthodox steps to make it look a lot more unique. Because right now, it looks pretty good. But it has the potential to be a lot better than this. Something a lot less basic. At least that's just my opinion. Good job, Albert R. Broccoli. It was a pretty interesting and clean looking MOC you have here. I do hope to see more out of you, and I do hope to see something out of you viewers as well. So check out the message boards at board.ttvpodcast.com, where you may post your own creations under the LEGO Creations category. And once you've done that, you've already given yourself a higher possibility of being featured on the MOC Spotlight than you would have had posting it anywhere else. Because I'll tell you right now, MOC Spotlight's been up for about a year, and this is the first time I've taken a MOC off of Reddit. So don't be afraid to let your creativity just go all over the place and just get crazy with it, and then bring it all back to the message boards. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.